An enormous asteroid named Matilda, spanning about 70 miles, has been detected on a collision course with Earth. Every major government collaborates on a space mission to eliminate the threat, but the plan fails catastrophically when their spacecraft detonates immediately upon entering the asteroid field. With that, Earth's fate is sealed. In a mere 3 weeks, Matilda will strike, eradicating all life on the planet. As the news breaks over the car radio, married couple Dodge and Linda learn about the impending catastrophe. Dodge seems oddly unfazed, merely pointing out that they've missed their highway exit. Frustrated by his placid reaction, Linda abandons him on the spot. Meanwhile, everywhere else, people are hurriedly checking off items on their bucket lists, pursuing final moments of joy, companionship, or even hiring mercenaries to end things on their own terms. Amid the chaos, Dodge carries on with his humdrum routine as if nothing's changed. Despite only 21 days left until impact, Dodge still visits his mostly deserted gym. A television anchor there confirms cell phone networks have collapsed and warns of imminent water and electricity failures, underlining just how swiftly normal life is unraveling. Dodge then drives to work, getting stuck in even worse traffic than usual as people flee the city for more peaceful locales. In the office, he notices only a few staff members bothered to show up. Clients keep calling, desperate to see if catastrophic global destruction could somehow be covered by insurance. At a tense meeting, leadership offers promotions to the few who remain, though no one in Dodge's small group seems to care. After work, Dodge opens his empty mailbox and overhears his neighbor Penny rushing from her apartment in the midst of a dramatic breakup with her boyfriend Owen. Inside his own apartment, he's startled to find his cleaning lady, Elsa, dutifully tidying up. When Dodge suggests she take some time off because the end is near, Elsa misreads it as a dismissal. Feeling bad, Dodge retracts his words, and Elsa promises she'll be back the following week. Later that night, Dodge downs a combination of cough syrup and vodka while watching TV. As night falls, the final commercial flight departs, officially halting global passenger airlines. Private planes remain an option, although the risks are sky high. Before sleeping, Dodge comes across a spider in his bathroom. Instead of killing it, he inexplicably spares its life. Ironically, the spider spends the night roaming across Dodge's sleeping face, leaving him with multiple bites come morning. Waking up, Dodge notices the fresh spider bites dotting his cheek. Upon reaching work, he's shaken when a colleague's body, the result of a desperate act, crashes onto his car. Another week slips by, leaving just 14 days until impact. Dodge attends a frantic end-of-the-world bash hosted by his friend Diane, where her teenage son slings insults before storming out. The parents don't hold back, hurling similar insults right back at him. Diane's husband brings out expensive cigarettes he'd been saving. As they share one, Diane casually points out she isn't surprised Linda left Dodge, hinting that Linda was unhappy for a long time, something Dodge claims he never noticed. Diane insists Dodge shouldn't spend his final days solo, but when he objects, her husband quips that nobody's really alone since everyone's about to die together anyway. Festivities ramp up, and Diane introduces Dodge to Karen, who's dressed to impress in fineries she rarely had a reason to wear. The conversation is painfully awkward, with Dodge at a loss for words as Karen attempts to flirt. But once the party gets wild, Karen persists in trying to capture Dodge's attention. Enjoying the story so far? Subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support powers our adventures. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive back into the adventure. During dinner, guests talk about how they plan to spend their remaining days. Some mention visiting distant family, others crossing items off personal bucket lists. Karen states her intention to spend the end with someone special, not so subtly eyeing Dodge. After the meal, the party spirals into heavy drinking, and even kids are allowed alcohol. Karen's dance moves become downright suggestive as she continues targeting Dodge with flirtatious looks. A friend corners Dodge to brag about how the looming apocalypse has destroyed typical dating standards, making it easy to hook up. He invites Dodge to join him in a suggestive escapade involving Karen, but Dodge politely declines. Fireworks explode, and mood-enhancing substances appear, pushing the atmosphere to an edgy extreme. Overwhelmed, Dodge slips away to the bathroom. Diane barges in and attempts to kiss Dodge, who quickly points out she's married. Diane shrugs it off, saying marital boundaries no longer matter. Unable to handle this behavior, Dodge decides to leave early. At home, he finds an old photograph of his high school sweetheart Olivia and begins playing a somber tune on his harmonica. His playing stops when he hears sobs coming from the fire escape. Outside, Dodge discovers Penny, overcome with emotion. She throws her arms around him, explaining that she missed the final flight to the UK and is now stranded far from her family. Dodge invites her inside, offering a mix of cough syrup and vodka. Penny reciprocates by offering him pot, which he declines. Penny mentions she suffers from hypersomnia, an extreme tendency to sleep for long stretches, and that smoking is the only thing that helps her both knock out at night and wake up in the morning. They settle on the couch, TV flickering until both drift into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, Penny snoozes on, oblivious to the blaring news and Elsa's vacuum cleaner. Dodge lightly pinches her nose, yet she doesn't stir. Eventually, his harmonica melody rouses her. She decides to leave, but first gives Dodge a massive stack of his mail that the postman had mistakenly delivered to her for years. She explains she kept it all, hoping to run into him one day. Penny casually mentions seeing Linda around the building with a boyfriend, assuming they were merely pals. Horrified, Dodge realizes Linda was cheating on him. Furious and humiliated, he destroys Linda's belongings before going to a park to sulk. He chases off a teenage couple kissing, then downs a bottle of bright blue liquor until he passes out, seemingly intent on a final bender. Surprisingly, Dodge wakes up just fine the next morning, with a small dog tied to him and a note reading, "Sorry." Unsure what else to do, Dodge takes the dog home. The streets have exploded into violence, fires, and looting as society unravels in the final countdown. Back in his apartment, Dodge tunes into the news and learns unrest is spreading everywhere. Digging into the old mail, he finds a months-old letter from Olivia, stating she never stopped thinking about him, although she felt it was too late to rekindle their relationship. She signs off by calling him the love of her life. Then a brick crashes through his window, and alarms wail as the nearby riots escalate. Seizing the dog, his harmonica, and Olivia's letter, Dodge slips out via the fire escape. He rushes to Penny's place, only for Owen to accuse her of infidelity and punch a wall in anger. Dodge ignores Owen's tantrum and tells Penny the building's becoming overrun by rioters. Penny insists on saving her prized vinyl records, delaying them just as gunshots ring out. During the frantic dash to Penny's car, Owen shamefully tries to use Penny as a human shield. Once she finally gets the car moving, Owen can't stop complaining, prompting Penny to pull away, leaving him behind after Dodge reveals he knows someone with a private plane. The next day, they run out of gas since Penny never filled the tank. As they walk down a quiet road, Penny's unwavering optimism grates on Dodge, who snaps at her, blaming her for making him miss Olivia's letter. Filled with remorse, Penny promises to help locate Olivia. She flags down a passing truck driven by Glenn, who agrees to give them a lift. During the ride, Penny encourages Glenn to share every detail of his life story, from his father's childhood onward. Dodge quickly grows irritable, particularly when Glenn explains he was diagnosed with a terminal illness just weeks before the world-ending asteroid news broke. Glenn muses about suicide, but mentions it wouldn't have guaranteed him entry to heaven. Growing uneasy, Dodge notices digging tools in the back of the truck, fueling his suspicion that Glenn might be untrustworthy. Glenn stops for a break and invites Dodge to join him outside, but Dodge chooses to stay put. Penny steps out to walk the dog, uninterested in Dodge's concerns. Suddenly, Glenn returns and apologizes for the confusion. He'd hired a mercenary to end things for him before his illness did. Right then, the mercenary shoots Glenn and speeds off in a separate vehicle. Horrified, Dodge and Penny bury Glenn using his own shovel, then continue driving his truck down the road. They soon spot a cheery diner named Frenzies and decide to take a break. The staff greets them warmly, admitting they've all been using recreational substances and cooking strange menu items. Dodge and Penny play it safe and order standard fare, even getting some scraps for the dog. Penny can't resist joining a spontaneous conga line. Mid-meal, the staff surprises Dodge with a mini birthday celebration. Apparently, Penny told them it was his special day. Things quickly turn risque when the employees start kissing customers without restraint. Feeling uncomfortable, Dodge grabs Penny and the dog, and they slip out. Back in the truck, tension builds between them, leading to a passionate interlude. Afterward, Dodge frets about their age gap, but Penny insists it was a mutual decision. Their moment is cut short when police lights flare up behind them. Penny, puzzled by the idea of obeying traffic laws during an apocalypse, suggests they keep driving, but Dodge insists on stopping. As the officer approaches, Dodge hastily conceals Penny's cigarette in his mouth, inadvertently inhaling. Despite Penny's protests that laws no longer matter, the officer detains them. They wind up in a holding cell with a protester arrested for waving a "the end is here" sign. Penny is distraught at the delay, feeling she's failed Dodge. Dodge reassures her, admitting he's been adrift his whole life, long before the asteroid threat. Exhausted, Dodge plays his harmonica until they both fall asleep. Come morning, a new officer arrives, frees everyone, and explains the impounded truck isn't being released. However, he kindly offers a lift. Penny recalls an ex-Spec lives not too far away, so the officer drives them there. Spec, who clearly never got over Penny, is an ex-military type who has a bunker stocked with supplies. Eager to help Penny reach her family, Spec lets her use his satellite phone. Overcome with emotion, she speaks to her parents and siblings, finally hearing her baby niece's voice for the first time. Seeing Spec's obvious crush on Penny makes Dodge uneasy, and Spec privately remarks Penny can stay in the bunker while Dodge cannot. Undeterred, Penny requests a vehicle, intent on keeping her promise to Dodge. Spec allows her to borrow a car, asking her to return it later. Penny and Dodge resume their journey, sharing stories about fate and coincidence along the way. They arrive at Olivia's childhood home to find it empty. Penny breaks a window to get inside, discovering plenty of food in the fridge. They choose to spend the night, giving them a chance to catch their breath. Dodge finds a vintage record player, and Penny excitedly puts on some of her saved vinyl records while she makes dinner. After a nap, Dodge and Penny enjoy a quiet meal with the dog. Penny talks about her family's musical legacy and how her father nurtured her love of vinyl. While snooping around, she finds an old letter from Olivia to her parents with a current return address. Dodge's spirits lift, thinking he might finally see Olivia again. Before bed, Dodge notices that Olivia once etched his name on her childhood bed, a testament to how deeply she once felt for him. Penny flips through an old yearbook with pictures of Dodge, amused by his youthful look. They retire for the night, anticipating a final push to find Olivia the next day. At dawn, they track down the address from Olivia's letter. Dodge asks Penny to wait in the car, but he returns almost immediately after walking up to the house without knocking. Driving off, he explains he left a note for Olivia instead. He's decided not to meet her in person. Confused, Penny presses him for a reason, nearly causing an accident when they almost collide with a line of people. Following the crowd, Dodge and Penny discover a gathering at a beach where people are being baptized. Deeply moved by the serene scene, they share a tender kiss and spend the rest of the day picnicking in the sun, letting the dog romp in the sand. Penny attempts a few harmonica notes under Dodge's guidance, and for a moment, the apocalypse seems distant. Eventually, Penny drives them to a secluded house in the countryside, which belongs to Dodge's estranged father, Frank, the man with a private plane. Giving them space to reconcile, Penny watches as father and son awkwardly reunite. Frank apologizes for abandoning Dodge in the past. Though the end of the world looms, they find comfort in each other's company, sitting down to a heartfelt dinner together, with Dodge and Frank bonding over a harmonica duet. Later, Penny falls asleep, and Dodge gently carries her into Frank's plane. Before Frank takes off, Dodge confesses that Penny has become the love of his life, and he wants to ensure she can reach her family in England. As the plane disappears into the sky, Dodge is left behind with the dog, quietly watching them go. Returning to his apartment, Dodge finds a note from Karen and Elsa, who tidied up while he was gone. The spotless surroundings feel meaningless now. Frustrated, he lashes out at Elsa, telling her to spend her last days with her loved ones instead of cleaning up after him. She's hurt, explaining she viewed Dodge as a friend. Realizing his harshness, Dodge apologizes, half-heartedly telling her to drop by next week, knowing full well there won't be one. Not long after, Dodge tunes in to what turns out to be the final television broadcast. The anchorman solemnly announces revised calculations show the asteroid will strike in just 16 hours. Visibly emotional, the reporter bids farewell before the screen goes dark. Dodge sits there in stunned silence, absorbing the finality of it all. Feeling nostalgic, Dodge heads to Penny's empty apartment, still faintly scented with her herbal smoke. He selects one of her cherished records and plays it, letting the music drift through the silent rooms. The dog looks on anxiously as the power begins to flicker, and Dodge lies on the floor, remembering everything Penny taught him about living in the moment. Suddenly, the dog barks at the door. To Dodge's astonishment, Penny stands there, tears running down her cheeks. She confesses she woke during the flight and begged Frank to turn around. Relieved, Dodge pulls her into a crushing hug. They settle onto the bed, explosions rattling the city as the asteroid nears. Wrapped in each other's arms, they exchange heartfelt declarations, neither wanting to be alone for humanity's final chapter. Dodge keeps Penny talking, gently distracting her from the world shaking outside. They cling to each other through the final tremors, finding solace in each other's presence as Matilda hits Earth, ending everything in one cataclysmic flash. In those last seconds, their eyes remain locked, sharing an unspoken promise that not even the end of the world can erase the bond they forged.